Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name's Hannah Hensley, and I am the Director of Assessments for the Office of English Language Proficiency at the State Department of Education. This morning, we will be going over the WIDA Access Assessment pre-reporting of data validation. That is done in WIDA AMS. So let's get started. So kind of the gist of what we are doing, the who, what, where, when, why, how, all the things. So the window opens on Thursday, April 17th and goes through Friday, May 5th. This is done by district staff. You all go in and do the data validation in WIDA AMS. It says where the changes are made is in the WIDA AMS system. And this is done because the why we do this, it allows districts to identify errors in any student demographic, accommodations, or test result records. We want to get any of those errors cleared up and make those corrections so that the reporting is accurate and all the records align and everything is good to go. Okay, so data validation is important. Failure to complete the data validation could result in the students' score reports containing errors or there being more than one test record, which then will cause an issue with receiving their overall composite score. And it's very important to do this when the window opens in WIDA AMS so that all those things can get cleared up, because this is your only opportunity to do that, to fix the errors before the reports are printed and posted in WIDA AMS, and then it is more difficult to correct any issues that come up. So steps to do data validation. So first you'll log in to WIDA AMS. Up in the top left-hand corner of the page, you'll click My Applications, go to Student Management, and then Data Validation, which data validation is over on the right-hand side at the top of the page. So you will select an administration from the drop-down that is required. You'll put in your district from the drop-down as well. And then, so the two things that are required to start with are the administration, so the 2022-2023 access administration, and then picking your district. You can also select a school and a grade if you want to refine the results more, but the two that are required are the administration and the district. This is what that page will look like. So after you put in the access for ELS, then you will also put in your district. This will be 2022, 2023. And then you'll click Show Students. So that's what the page will look like in WIDA AMS. Okay, after you you'll click Show Students, and then it'll say Edit Students, and you'll go to the Status Report tabs will appear. You'll select any additional filtering options from the Edit Student tabs, like status. You can choose from status, last name, first name, or state student ID, and click Find Students. Then you can sort the student information in the search results by using the categories in the blue header row, which will be up at the top of the page. Okay, then you'll click Edit. View Edits student icon in the action column next to each student's record to display the students' information, and there will be student demographics, student accommodations, and test results will be the tabs that come up for you to see. Okay, so then when you go in, one of the options to correct any errors or add any additional information would be in the demographics. So this is what that looks like. You'll have the student detail, accommodations, and then the demographics tab. And these are just a few of the things you can put in. These are not required, but they are helpful. Okay, so editing the student demographic information, we want to make sure that this district staff may edit the following student demographic information, just making sure students' names are spelled correctly, that that the accommodations are done correctly, the demographics, like the ethnicity, race, IEP, or 504 codes. And then we will go over the do not score codes here in just a moment. Okay, so questions. It looks like we may have a question in the question box. Let's see.
Or, the question is, will there be written documents with instructions?
Yes, so at the end of the presentation, I do have a link to an additional webinar that WIDA actually put out. And then I have a link to the instructions that are for data validation that are on the WIDA, or excuse me, in the WIDA Secure portal. I have the links to both of those at the end of this presentation. So we'll be able to, you'll be able to get those. So if there aren't any additional questions at the moment, we'll move on. Okay, so the data validation steps, we'll continue with those. So when you have made your corrections, and it says click the appropriate button at the bottom of the page. So clicking the save button will retain any changes you've made for future reference. When the data validation window closes, which is May 5th, the system will lock and save edits to be submitted to the reporting database. The status of the student record does not change as a result of clicking save. So save it just kind of is like a placeholder. Also, something that DRC pointed out, and to me, or that was brought up as sometimes is an issue that people get confused about, is the status. When you look at status on the students, it will say not complete. That does not mean that testing was not complete. It means that the validation of their, like the data validation, is not complete for that particular student. So don't panic if you see a student's information and status says not complete. Once you've gone in and validated it and clicked save and then clicked complete, then it will change over to saying complete, and that will show that the student record has been validated and all the information is good to go. Okay. Oops, sorry. Hold on. I apologize. Somehow I've lost control of going to the next slide. Hold on just a second. I'm not down here. No, I can just unplug. On track now. Okay, accommodations. So still in the data validation steps. Next, looking at student accommodations, you'll click on the student accommodations tab to see a record of any accommodations that were assigned to this student before testing. You can add and remove accommodations that for the student for each domain by selecting or removing the appropriate check marks. Make sure that you only remove the accommodation if it was not used. So if the accommodations were put in place prior to testing, which they should have been, make sure that you would only remove them if they were not used by the student during the testing window. Okay, so do not score codes. We want to be careful with our do not score codes. Those need to have well, we just need to be careful with using them. They will be populated if they're marked on the student's test booklet, or if they were entered into the WIDA AMS test setup. Use caution when adjusting the do not score codes. Adding or removing these codes incorrectly could result in the student's test score being incorrectly suppressed or reported. So the do not score codes are as follow, are the four that are right here. The first one is absent, which indicates the student was absent for a specific domain of the test. Decline, if the student declined or refused to test, which the state the WIDA access test is not optional. It is, it is required. The next code is SPED, which is deferred special education, or 504, which would be the IAP or 504 team met and determined that a specific domain was not appropriate for a student to participate in, or invalidate, which indicates the student may have completed that domain, but for some reason the testing was not valid, so no score will be reported for that domain. Okay, do we have any questions?
One question is, if a student moved during the testing window, what code would be appropriate to use?
So that could be a particular, that would be particular to that student. So if the person asking the question will put their email in and send me their email, I will be able to answer it just once I need to know the details of the specific situation, because it depends on if they moved in-state, out-of-state, just there's particulars for each question or for each instance. I think that's the only question at the moment, so we will go on. Okay, so this is probably one of the most common things that we need to take care of during data validation. It is critical that you check for duplicate records. To check for duplicate records, from the data validation window, you'll select the district, the school, the grade, and then click Show Students. Each student should display only once. So here is an example of what that looks like. I apologize, it's slightly blurry. So it should look like this, where there is just one student with one state student ID number here. Sometimes we end up with two records for the same student. So they would have the same STN number here, and first and last name would be the same. So to correct that, when a student has more than one testing record, for example, the student took listening, reading, and speaking online, but did writing on paper, they could potentially have two test records. So DRC is going to attempt to match those records. We want to make sure that the district, the school, the first 6 characters of the student's first and last name, their grade, and their state student ID match. As long as those match, DRC can automatically join the records and will display them as one record in WIDA AMS. But if there's a discrepancy between the records, for example, the state student ID number is bubbled incorrectly on the writing booklet, so maybe it's off by a digit, those cannot be joined, and it will appear as 2 different records in WIDA AMS. So to fix this problem, you'll want to ensure that the student to ensure that the student receives a single and complete score, update the records with the correct information. So you'll want to double check that the state student ID number is correct, their first name and last name are spelled correctly, the district, school, and grade are all in there correctly. And these 6 items are required by WIDA and by DRC to correctly match up the records. Okay, so here are the resources I was talking about earlier. This post-testing data validation webinar is in the WIDA Secure portal and is done by Andrew Lynn, who does a great job. He works was done by DRC, and it's really good and very helpful. And then there is also, and this is what it looks like when you get into the WIDA Secure portal, you'll look for the thing that looks like this and click on it. And then here is the written out information. This is the user guide for data validation. You will also, it's also found in the WIDA Secure portal. To access both of these, you must be logged into the WIDA Secure portal to find both of those. And then you're able to download this user guide to your computer and go over it. Okay, it looks like we might have a couple questions.
Two questions for you. The first one is they have a student whose mother refused to let her test the second day. So she tested 2 parts only. Should that be recorded as absent or declined to test or just left blank?
I would use the decline code.
And then the second question is an INMAR. If a student is INMAR, do we mark anything for that at this time during this window?
The INMAR, we do that during the data validation window. We will, I believe that I will go in and take care of those once the INMAR, once you have submitted the documentation for INMAR, I will go in and take care of that. If there are any more questions, we will touch on that. I know this was pretty fast. If you guys have any questions, please reach out. Again, I'm Hannah Hensley, the Director of English Language Proficiency Assessments. Here's my phone number and my email address. And then I'll also go back and put those other two links back up here in just a second. But I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work you do. It is really appreciated. And our office is here to help with anything we can do to help you guys with figuring out all this stuff. And we just really appreciate everything you guys do. And here are those, here are the links again. So it's the post-testing data validation webinar, and which is found in the WIDA Secure portal, and then the user guide supplement for data validation, which is also found on the WIDA Secure portal. So those are good resources for additional information. Did we get an additional question?
Nope, all questions have been answered at this time.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and please reach out with any questions. Thank you.